To recognize that radical Islam, 15 years after 9/11, we have no strategy to defeat it. We've had two presidents who have not come to grips with this political and religious ideology, and that's largely not a military operation, to be frank about it. That is largely moderate Muslims, us helping to organize them in the world to go after this ideology. Secondly, when we have terrorist movement like ISIS or Al-Qaeda establish a sanctuary like the Al-Qaeda did in Afghanistan and like ISIS has done in Syria now for 4 years, then that's a military operation. We go in there and we destroy that as quickly as we can. We made a mistake in Afghanistan. We waited too long and we got 9/11. We've made a mistake in Syria. We've waited too long and we're getting attacks in Europe, we're getting attacks throughout the Middle East, and now we're getting attacks in the United States. So we need to step up here. This takes a president's leadership. ISIS and radical Islam is at war with us, but frankly, Trish, we are not at war with them. The Congress certainly isn't. The President of the United States certainly is not. And obviously the American people are not. We have to change all of that.
But, you know, as you heard Josh Earnest, his press secretary there, point out, Obama has killed a lot of terrorists. And in fact, he would say, point to his administration and say, look, we have killed more terrorists under President Obama's regime than we have any other. What do you say in response?
Well, that's just not even true, given the war in Iraq and the war in Afghanistan under his predecessor. But here's some facts that they're not going to talk about. 5 years ago, the number of fatalities from terrorists was north of 3,000. In 2015, the number of fatalities from terrorists, radical Islamist terrorists is what I'm talking about, is north of 28,000. That is average annually now. That is wartime casualty figures that we're dealing with. And we are still don't have our head around the large issue of radical Islam and how to defeat it. It is stunning, actually.
Call it radical Islam. I mean, that's been a big part of the argument here in terms of how the president doesn't really view this as the enemy that it is, because we can't even general define it.
Oh, listen, we've been talking all day, rightfully so. How can we better deal with this issue inside the United States? I've just been talking about how to do it outside the United States. But how can we get the Muslim community and others to recognize radical Islamic behavior in speech or in lexicon if we don't talk about it, if we don't define it, try to explain it, try to get the American people to understand it? What is their role in participating in this so that when we do see radical Islamic behavior or speech, somebody will do something about it? There's no leadership in doing this. This is not just being left up to law enforcement. We need national political leaders to speak to this. We need local leaders to speak to it. And certainly we have to incentivize our Muslim communities to participate in this fully.
Yeah, most definitely. You know, General, unfortunately, a lot of people are still fearing a backlash of political correctness. Anyway, we have the latest on the victims next. General Keane, thank you so much for joining me today.